All right. So I think you just heard an announcement that the meeting is now being recorded. I apologize. It turned out it wasn't quite on. So I've now made sure it's on. Thank you very much for introducing yourself, everybody. Okay, I'm going to go back to the panel here. We've got a whole bunch of questions coming in. Thanks, folks. Keep coming with your questions in the question box, preferably. All right, we've just heard from a few people. They've introduced themselves using the word caregiver. We have a question from Taria out here in Vancouver who says, for the patients in the room. So I guess that would be Jeannie and Jane. I've always really hated the word caregiver. Is there another term that you use?
My pool boy.
Say a support person.
Support person? Yeah. And do you have one primary support person, or do you like to have a network of them?
In my case, I have a network, and they're mostly, there are a few family members, nieces and nephews, but most of them are friends.
Nice. Good. And Jane, how about you? How's your
I was just joking about my pool boy. I don't have a pool yet, but I've been campaigning ever since I was 10 for one. No, I guess I just call them my family. This is my family member. My parents are also, in a way, caregivers too. So they're my family. So we don't really use the word caregiver. Just this is my husband or my best friend or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We also have a comment here from Jazz who mentioned that she's heard patients refer to this person in their life as their life giver. She thought was a nice term. I also hear the word care partner sometimes. But yeah, I think we also recognize that there's sort of a range of things that can take place in someone's life as someone supporting a person with living with a chronic or an episodic illness or a range of complicated conditions. And so it's maybe the terms change sometimes depending on where you're at in that journey. All right. Okay. We have a question here from Leslie who asks, how do you like meeting with your doctors and nurses online rather than in person?
I find that that meeting the healthcare professionals virtually gives me a chance to have their undivided attention for the 15 minutes or 30 minutes. It's usually a 30-minute visit, sometimes 40, but I feel like I have their undivided attention because they're not, they don't have to run off somewhere, hopefully. And I usually get interviewed by or the results are given, part of the results are given to me by a resident or a fellow, and then they go off and they confer with the pulmonologist, and about an hour later both of them will phone me and give me the results of the tests they've done and a result of the information that the fellow or resident gained from me during his or her interview. So I actually like it. I feel that my situation is stable. So rather than having to make the trek downtown, about 20 kilometers away, I used to pre-COVID go by Toronto Transit. I don't think I'll be going by transit after this COVID period. I'll probably drive down. It's just that I don't like driving in downtown Toronto. So we'll have to play it out when it happens.
Yeah, tough to choose between driving in Toronto or taking subway, during COVID. Yeah, those are tough choices.
Well, taking the subway would take about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes to get there, but at least I don't have to physically use my own energy to drive in rush hour down and rush hour back.
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah. Any other thoughts on virtual healthcare these days?
I guess there's perks and quirks to the phone call versus in person. It's, the convenience of just picking up the phone. But living in the country, I don't always have the great reception. So a heightened level of anxiety of missing the call, perhaps. But it's nice. You get to ask all the questions. The other part that I'm kind of miss is the in-person, seeing the smile, the person, getting to do, I know probably people groan at me saying this, but getting to do the test, like the 6-minute walk test, it's just nice to feel like someone's looking at you closely and following your case. And when you're over the phone, you don't really get the same type of care that way. And by no fault of anyone, just that's the nature of this beast of the pandemic. So perks and quirks. The convenience part's nice, but it'd be nice to have that close look into your care.
Do you get to go to the hospital for your test prior to your consult?
No, so I haven't had an echo or an EKG or a 6-minute walk since the pandemic's begun. So it's just all, hey, how are you doing? And hopefully the doctor believes what I'm saying, and that's that.
I've had the test done twice since the COVID started. So I would go down for the test and then come home. And then about a day or two later is when I get the consult over the phone, or it could be through a video teleconference.
Okay, that's good. It's like a hybrid model.
I guess.
Yeah.
I think that would be good, actually. Yeah,
I prefer it actually by video, because at least I feel I could see the doctor or the resident who I'm talking with. But when it's done over the phone, it's just like a regular phone call. So you're just two people talking. But like through the video, if I need to show them, for example, how my hands are, if I have Raynaud's, or if I'm talking about the curvature of my fingers, I could show it to them. But if I'm on the phone, they can't see it and I can't show them.
it's convenient to do the phone call things, but it's also good to get the test done, and until we can get back to the test, and then they can have something to talk about. I think that's the way. I can see where doctor visits will be more like this in the future, and it will be good, but we still have to have that in person, like maybe every third visit or something like that. So that might be the way to go too.
I have my rehab nurse call me on average every 6 to 8 weeks to check in on me. And so she's sending reports to the hospital as well.
That's good.
Nice. Wendy, what has it been for you guys? You guys are also out in the country a bit. What is it like?
We actually haven't had any phone. Well, I mean, Lita, our nurse, calls us every once in a while, but Kendall's been able to go in for all of his appointments. So it's always been face to face. We haven't had any video or telephone appointments at all.
Oh, interesting.
That's
And
good.
Virginia, have you guys, I know you guys are close to your clinic, but have you also still been doing telehealth?
No, surprisingly, Carl has been going in for his PH group. So he has been getting his test done. He just had a right heart cath done within the last month here. So that hasn't changed at all. The only one that we do on the telephone whatsoever is just the GP. So nothing really changed for us for the pandemic, other than with his leukemia doctor, I wasn't allowed to go with him, but with the PH group, I can. So it just depends on what building we're going to.
Okay, well, thanks. All right, we have some more questions to get to. So we have a question specifically for the caregivers. This comes from Joan, and she asks, as a care partner, a companion, a support person, that chosen family, given family that takes care of us when we need it, what do you find particularly challenging, and what do you find helpful?
Challenging is the constant. It's always there, so you like just to get away to do something on your own, it's kind of difficult, especially during the pandemic time. We stopped all our home care coming in to help. I would get some respite time to go grocery shop and stuff like that. But we stopped it because we didn't want to get germs into the house, because you just don't know when you have home care coming in. You don't know where they've been or whatever. So that's been very challenging. And the most challenging I always found was when she gets sick. That I find that the worst. If she does get a pneumonia, she ends up in the hospital. I just find that worrisome. So, and what's good about it, we get to know each other a lot better, and we've been doing this for 9 years now, and it's been a journey, but it's been fun. So we just do what we can. We understand what we can and cannot do, and we go from there. So I guess the challenging is that we know it's going to be for quite a while. Like it's, yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. It's the emotional roller coaster of health. So you never know from day to day. Is it going to be a good day? Is it going to be a bad day? Is he, every time I'm a little bit better now than I was before, but every time he coughed or something weird, I was like, I'd go into complete and utter panic that I'm going to have to rush him to the hospital and all that kind of stuff. So I understand what you're saying. The emotional roller coaster of health that's tough. It's really challenging. And for me too, it's keeping up on medications. I mean, they're forever running out, and you're trying to get someone to give you a refill, but nobody wants to see you. And the pharmacy doesn't want to send the paperwork. The doctors don't want to send it back. So getting refills is such a challenge. It's just so crazy. And just keeping up on all the medications. I mean, Carl is on quite a list, not to do necessarily with PH, but just try to keep all of that going. And even with PH supplies, I mean, sometimes we can't count. And next thing you know, we're short. So we, having a call up saying, oops, we can't count. Can you send us supplies sooner? So it's the medications and stuff that are super challenging. As for good things, I mean, there's little things that happen here and there all the time. I mean, Carl's been doing some pulmonary rehab exercises and stuff, and I think that's definitely helping. When he's having a good day, it's always nice to see. And I've learned a lot about the hospital system, and whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know, but there's more knowledge up here.
Anybody have anything to add, or else I'll go to the next
Well,
question.
knowing the hospital system also helps you to navigate services that, if you're advocating for services that you could ask one or another specialist to refer you to, or to just sort of plant the idea in their minds. And getting rehab is quite important for those of us on oxygen, well, for any lung patient, but rehab really provides education to the patients. And of course, you have an individualized exercise program when you go to rehab. So it's usually here in Ontario, the rehab sessions are 36 sessions per year. And you could go you could go once, twice, or 3 times a week, depending on the stage that you're at. In my case, I was in rehab back in 2012, and I graduated in 2013. And then I went back again in 2015, and I've been there ever since. But now I only go once every week. Well, pre-COVID, once every week. In the other time, I used to go twice a week. So now I just exercise at home to the best of my ability, which isn't really that motivating to stand in front of the computer screen, but oh well. Knowing that the nurse checks on me every so often, sometimes too often, I think, because she'll always say, have you been exercising? No, not really. But I think my next learning curve now, I'm waiting for a rollator to come. So I am trying to figure out now when it comes how I'm going to manage my oxygen in the rollator or in a basket on the rollator and how that's going to work. So that's
Do you want
the
to tell
next
folks exactly what
channel.
that is? Do you want to describe what that is for people?
Oh, yes. I have had a foot ulcer all winter, so I was laid up. I was laid up in the sense that I wasn't able to move around too much for 10 weeks. And so I felt that it was keeping me from exercising. And my rehab nurse said that I should not exercise too much because of my foot, that I should allow my body to heal. So then after the 10 weeks, which was early April, I thought, okay, I'll try to jumpstart my exercise program and go outside and walk. So I was walking around the neighborhood, and then after about 20 minutes or so, I'd get tired, but there was no place in the neighborhood. Or in many cases, there was no place to sit down and rest except for a hydro box or a fire hydrant and lean up against a tree. So when I spoke with the nurse about a month ago, I told her that, and she says, "Oh, I think it's time that you get a rollator." So the rollator is like a walker. It has somewhat like a walker. A rollator has 4 wheels, and it has a brake and a lock. Well, a brake to stop the rollator and a lock to lock the wheels before I sit down. And supposedly it's lightweight. I had one, the occupational therapist brought one here for me to try out. And he told me that I don't push the rollator, which is in front of me. As I walk, I'm holding onto the handle. And as I walk, the rollator moves ahead of me. So I asked him, where am I going to put my oxygen tank? I'm on liquid oxygen and it has to stay upright. And he says, oh, he'll order a basket. So I have no idea whether a shallow and wide basket is going to come or a narrow and deep basket that will support the tank, because the liquid oxygen cannot be lying down flat or on a slant. It has to be upright. So anyway, I've been waiting now more than 2 weeks for the store to deliver this rollator. I know they have ordered it and that it's ready to be picked up. And when I called last week, the person answering the phone said she lost my file. So I'm just waiting.
All right. Well, I hope it comes soon. It sounds like that'll be a handy device to have around. Okay.
Yes. Going to the OT, the government will provide, will pay 80% of it, and I pay 20%, because I was quite willing to buy it up front. My rehab nurse told me to go through this local health integrated network. It's like a community care access program, and through an OT so that I could get government funding.
Great. Those sound like useful resources. Very nice. Lester, you're on mute. So just want to unmute yourself and
There.
yeah, go ahead.
Just to Berdine, I was like that with the medications. Like my wife's on a lot of medications, and I ended up looking after, putting them in these things, right? The whole tray for the whole week. And it was just too much, right? So I had to start writing down, I don't know if you can see that or not, but I write down, make my own little list there, what drug it is, how many refills I have left, the number. If I'm a little late, if I'm missing something from one of the days, stuff like that. And then date ordered and date picked up. And that way keeps me on track. So I feel more in control when I'm doing all her meds up. When I do that weekly. So that maybe that might help you.
I have what I call Carl 3.0 binder. This is my 3rd reiteration of the binder over the last
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Not your 3rd iteration of Carl.
So
I
we're
was
on
gonna
Carl
say.
3.0. He just keeps getting better.
Yeah.
So yeah, same thing, like writing down things. I find his medication is definitely stabilized now, so it's not quite the craziness except for the refills. That is one of my
Yeah,
bane of my existence. But yes, no, I used to carry that binder with me everywhere.
yeah.
'Cause it
Oh,
was
you
the
got
only
to.
way to keep organized.
Yeah.
With doctors' names and numbers and pharmacies and medications and tests and you name it. The
Yeah.
binder was the only way to keep from
Track.
totally being a disaster.
Yeah.
So that folks that are maybe new to are aware, PHA Canada does have a resource that can help with this. So we have an information sheet that you can download off the website or that came in your new to PH kit. And, you know, you can obviously get as many copies of it as you might need, but it's like one double-sided sheet where you can keep track of all your emergency information, you know, your doctor contact information and your current med stuff. That it's something you can carry with you, that you, if you needed to pass that information along quickly to somebody, you don't have the binder with you, that, you know, you could at least just whip out this piece of paper and give it to an emergency room doctor, and, you know, they'd have the basics down.
Right.
So yeah, that's a resource that's available on our website. Okay, I'm going to move us on to the next question because we've got several questions here and I want to get to them. We technically only have 10 minutes left, but if people don't mind, we'll go a little bit later. Anyway, the next question is from a patient. She says her biggest fear is getting sick and ending up in the hospital. Other than staying away from sick people, what other things can she do to stay well?
Well, the doctors always recommend getting our flu shot, and I also have a pneumonia shot as well. So that helps me, give me peace of mind that that extra layer of protection is there. I work with little kids, so germ set city, getting to bed at a good time, vitamins C, just good food, all that good stuff. That helps.
Yeah, for sure. Kendall, I see you've joined us. Welcome. Do you what's keeping you well these days?
Work.
Hey,
I do.
for some of us, it keeps us thriving, right?
I guess so, yeah. I'm pretty much there all the time, so, or so I've been told.
Keeping busy. Good.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to take us to the next question. For the care partners, how can we as patients help you?
Ooh.
Wendy's like, you could come home from work.
How can they help us? That's a good question, because at times, you know, my wife didn't ask me to get pulmonary hypertension, so I understand that, and she gets frustrated very much with being sick all the time and not being able to go out, not being able to do what she wants to do, and so, you know, that can be taken out on us as caregivers or care partners, whatever you want to call it. We're looking after them. Sometimes they take it out on you a little bit, and you have to but she always can pull it back and say, oh, you know what, that's not right. And then I guess be a little understanding of what we're also giving up a little bit of our own lives, right? And in order for me to be a good person to look after my wife, I have to be able to be healthy. I can make sure I eat properly. I have to make sure I get my exercise, like I said earlier. But I guess as a patient, I guess just the understanding about us a little bit might help. I'm not sure, but sometimes that's the way life is like, right? You have to not just look for yourself, you have to go for the other people around you, and it goes both ways, I think. That's it.
That's how relationships work, huh?
It is. It is.
Anybody want to add to that?
I would say they need to remind us to take time for us. Because I, for one, am not one that takes time for myself with 2 kids and Kendall and work, and I ended up suffering a depression, which I still suffer with. So I think to remind us that we need to take time is a good thing, because I
Oh,
think
yeah,
we
for sure.
forget sometimes.
You're right, because you get so busy with everything else, right? And you're always looking, yeah. So you have to, in order to do what you got to do, right?
Mhm, mhm. Thanks, Wendy. All right. We have a question here for patients. I think Jeannie, this one might come to you a bit, but we'll see. Susie says, how do you deal with the day-to-day activity when you live alone?
That's a good question.
Especially when you're not having a good day or week. How do you manage?
Well, I have to remind myself that I am alone, and I do have a few people I call on, but I find that I have to pace my activity and my rest time. So these couple of days now, I'm extremely busy. I have an interview tomorrow morning that's for a conference in this fall. But anyway, I know that after tomorrow, like Wednesday's definitely going to be a rest day. Yeah, well, I still have sessions here at conference, but overall it will be a rest day. So um, I have I think I know what my boundaries are, and so besides taking time to balance the activities that I have to plan out each day, so I keep a very detailed calendar to know what appointments I have or what activities I really enjoy that I want to do. I actually have I'm happily married to Facebook, and there's lots of music entertainers to keep me occupied. But I have to say at times, okay, I have to get some things done, and I just can't listen to them now, but I'll listen to them as a reward for doing whatever I need to do. So that sort of works out for me. I think like in terms of housework, that's not quite my forte, and I do need some help there. But like Al says, I'm quite reluctant now to invite anybody in. So, I've gotten used to my own life. If people come, oh, my house is really cluttered. So I give them a heads up. So, I kind of cover it up that way.
Jeannie, I like to think that I play a small part in your happy partnership with Facebook, because I know you weren't always a Facebook user, but
no, I found that last April, it was Laurence from the PHA staff who convinced me to join Facebook because I wanted to take part in a webinar with Dr. Maida, Sanjay Maida.
COVID. Yeah, I remember.
Right. And the only way that I could actually do that, I think, in that particular situation was to go through Facebook. And I just sort of knew well in advance, if I join Facebook, I will be addicted to it for whatever they say. I'm on it easily 12 hours a day, or at least it's turned on 12 hours a day. And my digital reminder on my phone says, oh, something like, you have to take care of yourself. You've used you've used, like say, 17 hours more this week than you did last week. It's like, oh, great, but I just kind of ignore it.
Yeah. I think if you're listening to music, it doesn't count. But
don't worry about the dishes. My dishes pile up two or 3 days in a row before I do them too.
I think it's very reasonable to spend time on Facebook, especially when you live alone. Yeah, we all need community, right? We all need people around us. Okay.
Yeah, it's a great way to connect with others.
For sure. And we have a great PH Facebook community out there that's very active and that I appreciate every day for all it teaches me. Okay, we've got a question from from Jazz out here in BC for the
Oh,
caregiver.
thanks, Leanne. She says that I crack her up. Gotta have some humor, like living with PH is just, you're living with it. You're not like, to me, the PH and the PF and the scleroderma, that's not me. Like, I have it, but I'm not it. That's the way I take life.
Nice, very nice. Thanks. All right, Jazz says, for the caregivers, how have you managed when you're the one who ends up being sick or in the hospital? Oh, Craig, let's hear it.
We're very lucky. Jane sometimes takes care of me. Like if I get hurt or something like that, I'm lucky that she can care for me, and I appreciate it. And I just have to accept that we're gonna shut down everything, and we're gonna watch movies on the couch, and we're gonna be laid up for a while. And it's time to just relax and recover.
Get some pizza.
Yeah.
Nice.
Dishes may pile up. That's all right.
Yeah. Housework doesn't get done. Accept it and just relax and rest and get better. Yeah.
You guys are
It's quite a concern for me, actually. If something happens to me, I do have backup. I have 3 kids that they all live in the area, and they all come over and help me. But sometimes, like if I end up in the hospital or something, which has happened with the blood clot of this, or it's something around my gut there, I forget what you call it, but it was bad. And when you get sick, it's impossible to look after the other person. So that's why you should have a group of people that know your situation, that are able to come and help in case something does happen, because it is a big concern for me and my wife. She worries about it all the time. So no easy answer, but to have a support system.
Yeah. Yeah, having that extra support system for sure. Go ahead, Berdine.
For me, I have a chronic pain condition that I've had for almost the last decade, which creates a lot of issues for me standing or walking. I can only stand for maybe 5 or 7 minutes before I'm in excruciating pain. So it's been very challenging, as we call it. Carl and I talk about how many spoons we have to deal with things today. If you haven't heard of the spoon theory, definitely take a look at it. It's out there on Google everywhere. But I've had to come to the conclusion that my house is not always going to be clean. Dishes are not always going to be done. I'm not always going to get everything accomplished I want to in one day. And that's tough, because I was not like this 10 years ago. And that seems like yesterday, of course. So it's really tough. But I have to thank technology for making some things easier. I don't grocery shop. That I do it on my couch, watching TV. I order my groceries, they come to me the next day, done. I'm looking at having someone come in. I'm a little like everyone else. I'm a little worried about people coming into our house right now to do things, but I am looking at getting some cleaning help, whether it's once a month, once every 3 months, whatever it is. I can't take, hanging upside down to clean the toilet anymore. So, as soon as a pandemic, or at least I get my double vaccination done. I've been vaccinated once. Carl's got both done. So once we're both doubly vaccinated, having someone come in the house may not be quite as frightening as it is right now. But I'm definitely trying to use more and more technology to make things easier for us. But like you said, when you get sick and you have to rely on the patient to take care of you, that's tough. And I had to do that not that long ago. And I think I broke down into complete tears in the kitchen, saying it's wrong that I have to rely on Carl to caregive for me. It seems so wrong, right? But what do you do when you're sick or you're not feeling well? And, somebody's got to do something, right? You have no choice. So it's super duper tough, but use the services that are out there that you can. Look to help in your community. You never know who might be out there, especially as you get into the 65-year range and you can deal with the seniors networks, stuff like that.
Thanks, Berdine.
Carl's working his way up there.
I'm 64.
But I mean, there is the seniors networks. I mean, that's definitely something that can
Yeah,
be
oh, for
looked
sure.
at as you get older, stuff like that. So it's, even for me, it's really tough to admit I can't do it all. And that Carl can't do it all, that we cannot do it all together. And we just look to see where we can use technology, where we can use services, whatever it is, to make our lives as easy as we can make it.
Well, your network is being put to work for you, because we've got a recommendation from a fellow Vancouverite for a fab retired nurse who cleans her house.
Nice.
In Vancouver. So I've been given permission to share her contact information with you after.
Yes, that would be absolutely wonderful.
There you
Thank you so
go.
much.
I can tell you that if Taria trusts her, then you can trust her. So,
Perfect.
yeah,
Recommendations are always welcome.
for sure. And nobody knows it, how you feel, those fears you have, like a fellow PHers. So, all right, we got 3 last questions. So if people can give me a couple more minutes, then we'll quickly go through these. We have a question that says, patience, how do you explain your illness to others? There seems to be so many unknowns. For example, what does it mean when they say PH is fatal? I'm very new to this.
Well, that is a hard question. Even amongst my closest friends, I try to explain to them what I have and when they're with me. But I think that when they see me, generally, if they don't see me frequently and they're not with me 24/7, they only see snippets of me out in the community or wherever we meet. And so they probably see me at the best of times. And when I'm really ill or really grumpy, they don't see me then. Jamie, rephrase your question. I got carried away there.
Oh, the question actually disappeared from in front of me, but
How do you explain to others?
Yeah, how
Oh, how to explain to others. Okay.
Especially with all the unknowns.
Yeah.
Right. I try to do it through analogies, like when I'm talking about different aspects of my my health. I try to, so for example, if I'm talking about the part of my condition, if I'm talking about the dilations in the bronchial walls, I'll give it as an analogy that if you think of a road with potholes and the water collects there, it's like when my lungs, my bronchial tubes have dilations in the walls that collects mucus that could easily make me feel ill or cause pneumonia. And when I explain it through analogies, I have several others that helps to explain or helps to inform them on the conditions that I have. And one time I did a 6-minute walk test, or like a 6-minute walk simulation at a church. And I had everyone blow through a straw. Yeah. And I think that I asked them to hold their nose for a second or not a second, like a minute. And I made sure I had some respiratory therapists in the room in case somebody should pass out on me. But anyway, some of my friends that came to that event said they couldn't do it for a minute. And I says, well, think of it. I do this every day. And, so that was a real big eye opener for
That's
them.
a good one. That's a very good one. Yeah.
So I had them basically walking around a gym, and many of them couldn't get around the gym, just, even part of the way. So, yeah. So I guess otherwise it's just, if I have a chance to invite my friends to an awareness event, then I encourage them to come along, and sometimes that helps too.
I was going to throw this question to you as well, Jane. Like Jeannie, you are an educator, but you're also a young person who, doesn't really look like she's living with a pretty serious condition. So how do you explain to your peers what it's like for you? What's
Yeah, I'm very hands-on kind of person. So I just tell them my bronchioles are slowly closing in, and that puts an added pressure on my heart to get the blood oxygenated. And that puts me at risk of having heart failure. So I take some medications which help open up those bronchioles, which puts a release on my heart. That's my go-to phrase with peers. With kids like my niece, I have bobos in my lungs. So it depends on who you're talking to, really.
Nice.
But yeah, it's, you know, some won't understand the complexity of, or, you know, how severe it is. Like technically I have severe IPAH. It may not look like it, like you're saying, but this is the cards I was dealt. So we just say we keep going. The meds, I always knock on my head, they're keeping me stable for now. And yeah, I have my doctors nearby in case anything, in case I should need them or things change.
Carl has in the chat has another analogy for everybody. That's potato in the tailpipe. If anyone needs another potato in the tailpipe, he's giving permission, I think, for all to use. All right, we got a couple little more questions. Very quickly, Jeannie, just very quickly, what's the difference between using a POC or an O2 tank? That's the question.
Okay, a POC is a portable oxygen concentrator that runs on batteries, and it also has a plug-in. The home concentrator has a plug-in that you could plug into the wall, but a POC is one that you would use daily to go out of the house, or you could use it in the house too. And then an oxygen tank can be seen in two different ways. If you're on liquid oxygen like I am, an oxygen tank is like a POC, except you have to fill it yourself with liquid oxygen. And I guess there's a large refrigerated type tank that's called a liberator that holds the liquid oxygen for me to refill the small ones before I go out. Now with refilling the large tanks, refilling from the large tanks, it has to be done within a half an hour of leaving the house, because if I do it the night before, it tends to vent, and so and evaporate some, so I won't have the full tank in the morning. So it has to be done just shortly before you go out. But you also have to allow, if you're using liquid oxygen, that you dry the connection on your port, on the tank itself and the reservoir or the big liberator, because if you don't dry those connections, then your little tank will freeze onto the big tank and you have to wait 15 to 20 minutes for it to thaw out. So if you're in a hurry, that's a big no-no. So anyway, it's yeah, it could be a whole session in itself, talking about oxygen equipment.
There will be. So that's a good opportunity to maybe just plug the fact that there will be a meetup discussion tomorrow afternoon about oxygen. So you can check out the schedule. And if there's more oxygen questions, you can join us there. Okay. We have Susan says, I have had IPAH. So like Jane said, idiopathic pulmonary arterial hypertension. She's had it for 20 years. 14 years of very severe IPAH, heading towards transplant. With lifestyle changes and oral medication changes, I've been stable for 6 years. Has anyone else experienced this? If you have, did your IPAH ever return to that same level of severity again? So I don't know if we've got anybody who's quite in this exact situation, but I don't know, Kendall and Wendy, do you guys want to tackle this one? Maybe not. I know it's not exactly the same, but I think you might be sort of been doing this for the longest, perhaps, of the folks on the line.
Yeah, I don't remember the numbers. It's been too long. It's probably written down somewhere. The last oral medication that they added was the Uptravi, and that to me and him made the biggest difference and brought the number down the most. So as much as it's like, as long as we go in and we don't have to add meds or change meds, we consider that a good day and a good visit, and we're stable. And that there's always that fear that you're going to go in and they're going to say, okay, well, this isn't working, we have to do something else. But I don't know, what do you put him on the spot and he won't say anything?
But I think you touch on a really important point, and I don't know if this is exactly what Susan is referencing, but I think, you know, we've seen changes in the availability of medication options. We've seen dramatic changes in the last, you know, 5-6 years, and
Yeah.
you know, many of you have been really, you know, instrumental in making sure that those options are available through your public drug plans in your provinces. And we saw good news recently about Ontario and Massachusetts and Yukon and other provinces as well. I think we've got even more provinces coming online really soon, which is great. But yeah, it just goes to show how we've learned with the research, the importance of combination therapy and using, you know, more than one type of treatment together at the same time. And hopefully, you know, that's going to continue to have people, you know, have similar to experiences to Susan and to others, where they're able to stay stable. Whatever, you know, that's a pretty, we know that that's not a clinical term, but, you know, like, you know, it means a little bit different things to everybody, but hopefully you can keep going to those appointments and stay on those meds and keep going like that for a long, long time. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to add one final question. I've saved this one to the end. It's going to be our last question. I thank you all for sticking with us for a little bit longer. Donna says, what is the most helpful thing your partner does for you, the patient? What would you rather them not do?
I think sometimes I find that the support people or my support friends want to do everything for me. And so I feel that while I'm still capable, I want to do it myself. But the other side of it is I know that I'm at times reluctant to accept help from others. And so I have to, you know, be a little more lenient or a little more flexible with myself and say, okay, yes, that's right, I do need help. So just recently, my church has offered to have a lady from the church do my grocery shopping for me. And so this lady does it most of the time, but every now and then I sneak out and do it myself because I really enjoy the shopping experience.
Yeah, it's a tough balance, I'm sure. Any of the married people wish to chime in on this question? What's the most helpful thing that your partner? I mean, it can go both ways, right? You know, what's helpful to you to keep each other going?
Find when Craig takes on the dinner, the food, that stuff is really helpful. But I also feel bad for not helping. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. So then we try, and then I say, okay, I'll do the dishes later. But I always like how he kind of helps me as well with that too. Makes it like a social event.
Nice. Good. Very good. All right.
Oh, I have one other comment there. I think that, you know, in general, people are willing to help us, but they don't always know how to help us. So if we give them direction on something that they could do for us, then they feel that they're helping. So like I have several friends who will say, you know, they're willing to help, but you know, they don't really know in what ways I want help. So if I give them a specific task and they do it, then I think they feel rewarded, or they feel that they're really helping me out.
Great. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody so much for being here, for all of your wonderful questions, and for all that's been going on in the chat. I haven't had a chance to review it all, but it looks like there's been a really good conversation going on there as well. I want to especially thank our panelists, Alistair, Berdine, Jeannie, Jane, and Craig, and of course, Wendy and Kendall. Always nice to see you, Kendall. Thanks for coming out. And just one final last
Nice
thing,
to see you,
I will
everybody.
just say that there was a conversation about explaining PH to other people. So I just want to do a little plug for PHA Canada's new educational videos. There's a short little 4-part introduction to PH. Each video is only a couple minutes long. They are available in both English and in French. And so, yeah, you can always share those videos with folks if you just need a little tiny brief explainer on what pH is and what's what kind of pH you have or what kind of treatment maybe you're even on. So anyway, we've got some thank yous to all of you in our chat, and once again, thank you all so much. Have a great day. We'll make this recording available as soon as we can. Take care, everybody. Have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, thanks.
All right.
All right. I'm
Kendall.
just going to keep the line open for just a second in case there's any final
Is that you,
questions.
Kendall?
Yes, that's Kendall. Yeah.
That Kendall?
Yeah.
I'm in the same side, on the other side. That's my wife and I.
You guys are connections buddies.
That's
I
right.
like it.
Very good.
Nice.
Okay, so we can leave now?
Yeah, you're free to go. Thanks so much. Say hi to
Okay.
Kathleen for me.
I will.
Okay. Bye.
Jamie, will we be able to see the questions too? Like, will you copy them out for us from the chat?
I don't even see them anymore. The questions.
Oh, okay.
Like, well, hold on. Maybe I do actually. Oh yeah, I can look at them here. I'll try. It's not the same kind of. I will
Were
try.
were there any questions there that we didn't answer?
No.
Okay,
No,
that's fine
we
then.
answered everything. Yeah, we went. That's why we went a little late. I appreciate that.
Okay.
We answered.